Yep.
We're live now. Oh, what is happening?
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
It's 6 a.m., 28th of November, 2025. Some people call this Black Friday. Do we have a Black Friday sale, Alia?
We have like lots of Black Friday sales happening. But we do have a special Black Friday sale of Black Friday through Cyber Monday, where you can get Dr. Nelson's or Kiltz Health's coaching certification course for $297. I just found out yesterday. So I will put the link in the chat.
It's so we're all working together to teach each and every one of us how to take care of our own health and not rely on the government
Right.
or the authorities or doctors. I mean, James Garfield basically died from an incompetent, dumb doctor. He had just let the dude alone. He wouldn't have died. He'd been fine. There was no massive a bullet penetration to any major organ. But interesting, a black doctor walked into the train station that he was shot at and basically began to help him. And then the white doctor shows up and starts probing to try to get the bullet out, basically dies of sepsis. Left him alone. So modern medicine is pretty much like increasing the number of diseases more than anything. And Dr. Nelson, Alia, thank you for all you do for Kiltz Health, because without you, we're under the radar. Because of you, we're expanding and helping people learn more about this. Dr. Nelson, you want to lead off with introducing Austin and the conversation?
Well, we didn't have time backstage for me to ask this, but I have a story of my own, and I think it relates to your topic here. So welcome here. If people have questions for Austin as we talk to him, please put them in the chat, QQQ. Also, hashtag AMT for what, Alia?
Today we will get this shirt, Meet My Food.
Meet My Food, okay.
And my AMT.
Yes,
ask your questions. Let us know also where you're watching from.
I'm in South. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. Finish what you were saying.
All right. So I'm in Central Florida. Dr. Kiltz is also in Florida, Sarasota. And Alia, it's I don't know where you're today.
I'm in the coffee region of Colombia. I'm gonna be up in the mountains later. Yeah.
And Austin, where are you?
South Jersey.
South Jersey. So you're going to be talking to us about biomagnetism. And I'm not going to mention a brand, but I accelerated my stroke recovery 7 years ago with a machine that emitted pulse electromagnetic frequencies. And I have video proof of the improvement.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about this? Tell us about you as well.
All right. Well, I am just a humble human being, servant of humanity, right? I've been through a lot in my life, just like many people. Currently, my mission is biomagnetism therapy. I've been practicing that since 2018. What is biomagnetism? Essentially, it is the use of therapeutic grade static magnets on the body in opposite polarity. So we're using those in pairs on the body in specific areas. You can almost think of it like acupuncture in the way that we always have a point A and a point B on the body, but it is not related to the acupuncture system. And the reason that we're doing that, like Dr. Kiltz was talking about backstage before we started the stream, is that we are trying to influence, and we are influencing, the hydrogen ion that's inside the tissue. And so a lot of times when we're talking about pH, and this dovetails perfectly with obviously the carnivore conversation in general, when we're talking about pH, what is pH? Well, pH is essentially a measurement of electricity in a liquid. For our purposes, it's, it stands for potential hydrogen, right? So this hydrogen ion that we have inside our body has this potential to go one way or the other. We essentially are using the magnets in order to stimulate that hydrogen so that it goes into the tissue and moves around, and it acts as an immunosupportive molecule. So what happens if you were to look at a blood sample before and after biomagnetism therapy is that you would see the red blood cells actually unclump and they become more free flowing. In a lot of clients that we see with diabetes or cancer or any other more chronic or degenerative disease, we can look at those blood cells and they show what we would refer to as the rouleau effect, where they kind of stick together, they're clumpy, they're not moving around very well. And what the hydrogen does is it goes in, creates a more oxygen-rich environment, and begins to unclump those red blood cells so that they effectively function more correctly. And so what does that equate to with clients that I see on a daily basis? I see things like Lyme disease, cancer, as we mentioned, fibromyalgia, a lot of gut issues. And so what happens is we see these, quote unquote, miraculous results from a lot of clients because the hydrogen is essentially helping to balance the pH. And then we see healing occur. When we combine that with diet, we get really fantastic results.
Hydrogen peroxide, what is it?
So that is essentially an extra oxygen molecule waiting to go into action, which can also be very detrimental, right? Just in the same way that we would use ozone therapeutically, right? Can also be deadly, right? We have to,
Can you die of too much electricity at one time, right? Right? I mean, this sort of like there's a sweet spot for the existence of all life, right?
Correct.
And outside of that, but what does electricity and magnetism have to do with life?
Well, essentially our entire being is constructed of, and really there's an argument to say that really everything is boiled down to electricity, and that magnetism is essentially the byproduct or the daughter of electricity. There's some argument, I'm not sure, Dr. Kiltz, if you're familiar with Walter Russell's work, the Universal One. He essentially believes that magnetism precedes all, and that electricity is born out from that product of nature. It's very hard to really nail that down, but I do think they're intertwined. There's certainly no separating the two, and we can see that in my work because we're essentially just applying static magnets, right? There's no electron flow with the magnets that we're using, but they are affecting an electric being, which is us. And every time you move your muscles, you're generating electrons.
Well, so it's motion which creates the electromagnetic fields.
Right.
Nothing moves. There's no electromolecular, but everything moves because there's nothing not in motion.
Right.
Essentially, right?
Right.
Because the universe itself is moving.
Right.
And so even though, I'm standing still, I'm not, right? And so, this is the part, how much of what we say is really true, or it's our best definition of what we think it is?
Right. Our poor attempt at descriptive terms. Right.
Well,
we do our best.
Let me jump in with a question here. Maybe you can help answer some ideas. Nadima from Instagram, her brother, I think it is, has gangrene in his feet, also has a bone infection in his finger. The doctors have been giving him antibiotics for a year. None of the antibiotics are effective.
Right. And why? Well, it's killing life, right? And the attempt is, well, okay, we have this imbalance, right? There's an imbalance of a particular life form that is trying to live, and it's using our body as that platform. And then our doctors go, well, we need to give you this antibiotic to kill said, pathogen. But as a response to that, you're killing everything else in its wake. How is it that the body is going to actually have healing? With biomagnetism, what we're doing essentially with the magnets is we're supporting the immune system, and then we're creating the environment in which it's like taking the fish out of water or taking us into space with no oxygen. And what happens is, let's say, for example, in the case of sepsis or gangrene or a UTI or really any infection, as we might think of it, is really the case of a pathogen that has moved from one area to another and is causing an issue because it's not in its proper place or home. And I give this example to my clients all the time. There are certain bacteria or viruses. Viruses is a whole other talk among itself, but let's use bacteria as the example because it's provable. We can take certain bacteria and move it from one part of the body to another, and we create major issues. We can use Candida as an example, E. coli as an example, Gardnerella vaginalis as an example, right? If we take those bacteria and we overgrow them or we move them to the urinary tract when they're supposed to be in the gut, we create a pH imbalance, and that creates inflammation, which is an issue for our body because it then is out of homeostasis. So to answer her question with the bone infection, there's probably a pathogen there that needs to be rebalanced. It needs to be moved out of where it's supposed to be, or where it is to where it's supposed to be, whether that's outside of the body or back into its proper home in the body.
And I want to thank everyone from Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and also our Kiltz Mighty Tribe for stopping in on Black Friday. And as Dr. Nelson and Alia mentioned, we do have a Black Friday sale. We're also doing on Kiltz Health, molecular fertility, and but again, invest in your health and wellness is one of the most important things. So ultimately, is sterile soil, is a world of sterility, of no microbes, good for us?
No.
I mean,
not even close.
Did we evolve from the original microbes in and of itself, most likely?
I mean, we are a soup of, we're more bacteria and all the other things than we are human flesh, right? And we're sharing the environment.
And so Nick Lane, he's a biophysicist guy, talks about how in the depths of the ocean, in the vents of the hot water that comes up, and all the minerals and the molecules that come together in some soup of reactions, and in water. And what is it about water that electromagnetically has importance to all life?
I think it's just inherent in the nature of the universe. And there's some argument to be made that the higher that we go off of our land plane and the further up you go, that you begin to encounter, more of a plasma state, which again, we could argue is a form of water. It's hard for our brains to think of it that way because we're used to looking at H2O. But I think really all life has either been affected by or is a byproduct of water, essentially, or different forms of it, right? I mean, we could talk all day about, really think about blood. Blood is water and it's plasma, essentially. Well, there's other components, but that creates our life. Without blood, we have no human existence.
Right. So plasma, but it's interesting. So in someone who has electrical dysfunction of the heart, and also someone who might have a cardiac arrest, how do we treat them?
We shock them.
We shock them, right? We shock the heart and electricity, right? So what is that doing to is that in essence sort of realigning the the magnetic poles per se, or the direction of the electrical motion?
I would say probably more direct of the direction of the electrical motion. That probably has more to do with it, but you also think about, magnetism enters the piece as well. So it's like you have all these different puzzle piece components together. They're all working together. The heart itself, depolarizes every time it beats, right? So we have also this exchange happening, almost like a piston, right? Right. Sort of a twisting, squeezing motion that's creating this field.
I love physics and biology and all these things. So there are these nanomotors. These are motors at a microcellular level that are moving, right? And there's the delivery of some sort of electrical impulse, which is related to the movement of hydrogen, and we talked about that a moment. And so can things like getting out in the sunlight or getting into salt water or connecting, grounding to the earth, is that something that also has effects on biomagnetism?
100%. In fact, I would say that if we all did things more in alignment with the way that our ancestors did, where we were just out in nature, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about magnets, right? We have to create all these things because of our modern day world, in a way, because if we're grounding, right, then we're talking about electricity. We're talking about sunlight. We're talking about a radiative electricity, right? It's a light force electricity, right? We get energy from the sun in solar panels, which then creates electricity. Salt water being one of the best conductors, right? So as Nikola Tesla described, the earth is more of a Tesla coil in a way, right? It's an ecosystem of electricity. The sun's motion and effect on the entire earth plane that we have here. And it's interesting that the oceans are made of salt water, which is a perfect medium for delivering this electrical force. It's very interesting. So it is one of those ideas of as above, so below, the micros and the macro and so forth.
Is really there any natural water that is without minerals at all?
Not well, yes. If you look at the way that nature creates water in and of itself and takes that evaporative process from the oceans, that would technically be pure distilled water. And then it transfers it to the mountain ranges and it leaks down, seeps into the ground, gets minerals, comes up out of the ground as a spring.
Is there any air that is 0% humidity?
Probably the higher up you go.
Okay, so right. But the atmosphere that we live in is an atmosphere of evaporation of water from the oceans of the world.
Right.
And is the air free of particles of salt or pollen or volcanic ash?
Not where we are.
I mean, right. So ultimately the world, the atmosphere is a vibrant, teeming life, really, if you think about it, right? There are life forms everywhere we are.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing sterile, but we're trying to sterilize the world.
Of course. Right. That's modern medicine's answer to everything. We just sterilize it and it'll go away, as opposed to understanding our relationship to it.
I have a question when you're done, Dr. Kiltz. I have a question.
Alia,
Okay.
you're right.
So you also do the carnivore diet. I'm trying to formulate my question so it sounds scientific or sounds normal, but what is that relationship to the body healing and the electricity needed and produced by the body? Why does that food work better than McDonald's French fries?
Okay, so by the way, my question was exactly the same as Alia. how does diet and why carnivore may be more valuable for our electromagnetic force fields.
Crazy.
It's crazy. Well, if you think about it, and this is the conversation that is ongoing in the social media and what have you. What is the appropriate diet, right, for really anything? Well, as I tell clients all the time, if we remove all of the noise and we just look to nature, what would we be doing and what do we observe? Right? If we go back pre-industrial revolution and further back into Egypt, you have modern agriculture in Egypt. That's kind of when we really started to cultivate that. But let's go back even further when we were just outside, no civilization whatsoever. Every specific creature on this planet, bacteria, viruses, all the way scaled up to humans, giraffes, elephants, whales, whatever, in nature, they inherently already know their appropriate diet. And it just is this way, and just by the way, for a quick background, I was vegan for 6 years, right? So I was confused. And there's no way that you can have a vegan diet in a non-industrial society. It's absolutely impossible. The amounts of food that you would attempt to grow, but then also have to keep on hand and dried during the winter months, it's impossible. Our diet has always been meat. So our physiology has adapted to that relationship. If we had adapted in a different way, we would be sitting here having a different conversation about how we only eat grasshoppers because that's the thing we adapted on, right? Or whatever. But our physiology works best because it is essentially a one-to-one relationship where we're sharing, at the end of the day, all those molecules that get broken down are recognized by the physiology of the machine that's breaking it down. And so because we adapted to eating meat, because our body needs all of this energy, right? And meat has a lot of energy.
And it actually, the really big thing about meat is it doesn't contain the toxins that plants do.
Correct.
And that's really probably the biggest thing. And so no animal cooks their food except humans. So let's pretend we ate only raw plants or raw meat.
Right.
I mean, which one, again, if you look at many of the great apes, they spend much of their time consuming plants.
Right.
And their gut is just always digesting. And whereas humans, we're able to go much longer periods without eating, and plant food is probably the biggest cause. Now, but the problem is, in our modern world, can we prove that animal-only diet versus plant-only diet, who's going to live longer and have the least amount of diseases? Do we have that? Who's going to tell us the way to do that study, Dr. Nelson?
I don't know.
Bart K. Professor K is the only one. He said, lock them up.
Lock them up and keep them there for 100 years. And
right.
Someone in 100 years can get some conclusions.
James Salisbury kind of did the study during the Civil War.
It's true.
Right? It is very radical and amazing concepts and ideas, right? Can't afford steak. I mean, ultimately, the cost of buying a whole cow or ground beef is pretty cheap, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And I could also speak from this perspective. In the vegan community, a lot of people will say like, oh, well, it's so much cheaper to eat plants. Well, I honestly would argue no, because you're having to also don't take into account the fact that you're buying all of these supplements when you could just go buy the meat, right?
I mean, the amount of money people spend on supplements and all this yickety yak is kind of crazy,
right? And really, if you're after pure health, we want to look to the most nutrient dense food available, right? And obviously, that's going to be meat. An inconvenient truth for, again, some vegan, vegetarian, thought processes, but it just, the fact is what it is. And so to answer your question, Alia, the reason that we see good outcomes in terms of electricity and health in regards to carnivore diets or even ketovore, anybody that's moving more toward an animal-based diet, is exactly to your point, Dr. Kiltz. It's removing toxic byproducts that are contained within whatever you're putting in your mouth. And meat just happens to be the perfect food for us to be able to have essentially low to zero inflammation. And it also contains all of the necessary ingredients or materials to build healthy cells and create that electrical flow that we need in order to maintain homeostasis in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes hand in hand with really any health outcome that we're trying to achieve. I think we see the most drastic outcomes when we look at people with gut issues, because really the immune system is contained within the gut. So you see these, miraculous healings when you have people that are in really terrible shape like that, whereas you won't see much movement in a healthy person because they're already in that state of balance.
Can we, thank you, Austin.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to,
multitasking.
yeah. What's the answer to this question, Dr. Kiltz or Dr. Nelson?
Well, Dr. Nelson, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, again, it isn't low iodine. It's plant goitrogenic effects. Remember, the plants damage every cell of our body, and the thyroid is like one of the most important glands of the body. And so by just supplementing with iodine, it may help. But if you get rid of the goitrogenic, tumorgenic foods, which are basically back to back to Noah Whiteman's book, and also the book called Light Eaters, you realize that plants are poisonous to every organ system of our body. We're probably, it's like adding tortillas and recognizing that it binds zinc and other minerals and vitamins that reduce our absorption. Plants are chelators.
Right.
Oh, are plants electromolecular magnetic life forms?
100%.
And do they move water?
100%.
And so do plants change?
Without the plants, will we be everywhere a desert?
That's right. There is no life form beyond an algae in the ocean, right? A photosynthesizing microbe that kind of is at the motion of the ocean, which moves by
electricity.
Okay,
right.
The winds of the world move by
electricity.
Yep. The Grand Canyon, Brother Ray, who's on Instagram today, in Southern California. So do the sands and the winds and the oceans, their motion is
right. It's all electricity.
It's all electricity. It's all magnetism, essentially.
Right. Yep.
Right.
100%.
And Rick mentioned we're all on a mission of entropy.
Yep. That's why they say a body in motion stays in motion. Right.
And yet ultimately all, it's sort of the life force of the universe is within each and every one of us. And you could get down to the cellular or the electromolecular reactions within the cell. That is no different than the cosmos.
Right. Right. This is the idea, I try to give clients very simple analogies, but if you think about it, we're related to everything else, right? Everything else is contained within everything else. You look at a leaf and you look at our hand, and they both contain veins, right?
One of the oldest organisms in on Earth with continuous life? Plants.
Turtles.
Right.
Oh,
Plants.
Yeah, sure.
No. Trees.
Yep.
Trees, because they produce a lot of dead material.
Right.
That's the strongest material besides a rock. And actually, a tree makes wood. What does it make it out of?
Right. Minerals, water,
Sunlight.
Yep.
Sunlight, right? So what is it about sunlight that affects and creates magnetic energy?
I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it's electric.
Yeah, so there's these photons that hit things and energize them and heat them up and
Right.
move them. And it's again, the motion is where electricity comes from.
Right.
And the motion essentially comes from sunlight, because without sunlight in our universe, nothing exists.
Correct. Which is why we have all the religions that worship the sun.
Okay, so now let's get back to faith and religion and the power of the belief in a higher power. What does that have to do with anything?
I think ultimately it's a core recognition that there's something that gives us our experience here. Right? It's this urge that we have to want to show a reciprocal gratitude for that. No matter what religious or spiritual aspect you subscribe to,
which is all a belief of humanity and how we visualize the universe. Right. Just like every organism, again, so we're the ones that are telling the story of everything.
Right.
We have no idea what everything and anything thinks of anything, because we're the only ones that are creating the outpicturing story, right? And as I'm listening to The Fifth Mountain by Paulo Coelho, and if you haven't read his books, you guys got to read his stuff. But ultimately, it is our faith and belief in a higher power that truly creates everything.
Right, which I forget the author. Well, it might have been Walter Russell, that mind precedes all.
There's nothing but a story, right?
Right.
And we're built on the power of the story. And oracles, the Oracle of Delphi. I mean, ultimately, and I was looking up the first book story, which I think is the Gilgamesh,
mm-hmm.
and how we seek the stories and through what we could see initially as cave paintings, and then eventually became the word, the written word. But the books and the written books are actually the most powerful energy of the universe, because now we spread ideas, right? And it's these damn ideas that keep spreading around the world. And so, is there any truth to magnetism, or is it simply our interpretation of the universe?
I think at the end of the day, it's truth. And I think we have the ability to reflect on it. And through that observation, I think, is how we understand or interpret what we would call truth. But I think that observation allows you to see that's cause and effect, I guess, in some way, that you could essentially view that or repeat that. And that truth, essentially, when boiled down to it, stands on its own because it's repeatable or observable without opinion, right? It's just an effect that occurs.
Well, but isn't that just our opinion and our observation? Because it's all theoretical. It's our theoretical interpretation. Even the universe, which is beyond, well, it isn't beyond our human mind, because it's created in the human mind.
Right. Right.
We are the creators of all things.
Right.
And we are the gods. Damn. It's as simple as that, right?
Yep.
And so go blog, go about blogging in the universe. That's all we're here to do is blog, right?
Right.
That and as George says, the infinity of the universe is beyond the understanding of the human mind. If we accept that, then nothing seems impossible. Although, as I say, I am possible because I believe. And faith in God is ultimately the foundation of humanity.
That's true.
We should get some of these questions. Let's see.
No questions today.
No
Yeah, I
questions
feel like Dr.
today.
Kiltz and I would probably just do 2 hours of philosophy.
Yes. well, it is just, and ultimately, I mean, what book is like the single most popular book ever created by mankind?
The Bible.
The Bible, probably, yeah.
The Bible. Now the Bible is what we could, the Judeo-Christian Islamic Bibles, but ultimately we got to go back to our ancient brothers and sisters who first contemplated anything other than anything, right?
Yep.
So yeah, we're only here temporary entropy, right? But it's like a breathing, it's like a beating heart or the breathing of life, right? It's always growing, it's always dying, right? It's always recreating, but it's just sharing electrons.
Right. Wilhelm Reich, who also a very controversial figure, observed this very thing, and when he was creating his theory of orgone energy, right, that everything essentially is in this movement pattern, all of the body, all of nature, and that in these areas of what we would call stagnation, like a Sahara desert, there's less of that movement. There's still movement, right? You have the lizards and the cactus doing what they're doing, but ultimately it's that breathing, that in and out, right?
Well, interesting. So understanding the glycocalyx, the sugar layers of cells, and the plant biome, and the plants breathe, and
Right.
they move water from the ground up through the tree, the limbs, and the stomata actually spray the water around the tree, right? And so there's this motion of water and all the minerals and minerals and vitamins and other products. And then I imagine the bacteria, yeast, and viruses are also part of that motion, right? And so all life forms are connected as one.
Right.
And this idea that we're going to end cancer or end disease is like a fictitious story. Can we exist without them?
No.
It's all entropy, as Rick says. Master Rick. We're going to have a couch at Boca. Do we know that yet?
We're not. We will talk about that afterwards, but we can
Okay.
definitely do a couch at Hack Your Health. Let's see. Elke would like this question answered. What does treatment look like? Is it preventable or only for specific issues?
Preventative.
Preventative, yeah.
Yeah.
That's for you, Austin.
Oh, that's my question. Okay.
Yeah, your treatment.
This is how I would answer that question. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? And so if we're doing things to prevent us from getting sick, less likely that we're going to fall prey to illness. If you fall prey to illness, right, then we can do biomagnetism to help stimulate the immune system. There's just sort of two schools of thought here. And this would really be a way to dovetail quickly into kind of what we would refer to as categories of disease. You would have acute infection where, right, we get strep throat or conjunctivitis or what have you, respiratory bronchitis. And then we have chronic issues where we've had low-lying inflammation, gut issues for a long period of time, or say like Lyme disease, where it builds a slow manifestation over that period of time, creating the inflammation for the long game. The prevention would be to take steps like eating a proper human diet in order to mitigate and allow your immune system and those cells to function at their optimal level, so that if you encounter something that may take down the immune system, in modern day, most of the times that's stress, that the immune system can handle that operation and continue to move forward. In biomagnetism, you can handle both. You have to manage the expectation in terms of after prevention, right? Like if you come to see me and you already have the UTI, we're sort of fighting the wildfire. But the hope is that we're going to essentially stimulate the immune system so that instead of maybe being sick for 8 to 10 days, it's only 3 or 4, right? Yes, Dr. Nelson.
Oh gosh.
What kind of tools or equipment do you use?
Essentially therapeutic grade static magnets. And then the knowledge, right? You have to have the knowledge. And the way that we figure.
So these are multiple individuals, small.
We have small, medium, large.
Okay.
Right. And a lot of that stuff is based on logistics of the body itself. So for example, I might want to use smaller magnets on the facial area versus larger magnets on the low back or the legs. I'll give you an example here. So we would use magnets like this. You can see the magnet inside the leather casing here. So we have reverse polarity. And so we would always be utilizing these in pairs on the body. So to kind of give you a quick idea here, let's say, for example, here's some minis, right? So these would go really well on the face, depending on the point that we're observing. Let's say, for example, you have respiratory syncytial virus. How do I, as a therapist, figure out where the magnets even need to go on the body? Well, we are designed in an incredible way where if you're not familiar with a form of kinesiology called muscle testing, we're essentially utilizing muscle testing to ask the body, where is this disease hiding, right? Or where are these pathogens trying to cause this inflammatory process? So we could say, for example, with RSV, you might have points here in the frontal sinus. And what occurs when you place a black and a red on the body in opposite polarity, there is this effect that we refer to as the all or nothing effect, which essentially is also like entropy. There either is motion or there's not motion. And so when we place them, the hydrogen immediately, it's on. And so now it's moving, and the virus has its own environment that it wants to survive and thrive in, which manifests in a lot of ways as illness for us. We are simply rebalancing the pH so that the environment is conducive to regular homeostasis. Now, we can also utilize that for prevention, right? I have clients who come see me who are what I would say are healthy, and they might see me once a month or once every 6 months just to get a tune-up, right? In order to continue the flow of life.
Interesting. Terry asked, can biomagnetism be therapeutically implemented at home?
It can. And in fact, I see clients who are in such a poor state of health that I may have to do a mobile call and go to their, make a old school doctor house call, right? I'm not a doctor, but we kind of play like that. So
can meditation, prayer, things like yoga, Tai Chi, and creating an environment in this magnet. I mean, we are essentially a magnet.
Mm-hmm.
And can we affect that? I number one is I highly am impressed with what Austin is doing, and I think it's very important. Do we have the ability for everyone and anyone in the world to begin to sort of function by simply imagining the beauty of life in all ways? And what do we know means that any of us are going to live longer? Is it really longevity that matters of our physical nature, or is it the quality of our life every day?
Quality, 100% quality. Yep. And we don't have time to get into it today, but definitely have experience where quality of life over quantity of life is concerned. And I would argue all day long that one really good sunset is worth one day of life over having 100 years of being bedridden.
Sure.
Yeah.
What I don't. Oh, go ahead.
Although, again, what would you say to a mollusk, right, that doesn't move, or to a tree that doesn't move? Again, it's back to our interpretation of all life existence, when in fact we don't know.
Yeah.
Next question.
What's his thoughts? I don't know how Qigong.
Is that my question or Dr.
Yeah,
Kiltz?
No, for you.
Hey,
Yeah, those questions are for you.
I think Dr. I think Qigong, right? We're going back to this idea of energy and movement of energy. And if we think about our body as a microcosm or reflection of the universe, everything's in motion, right? Which is why we create any of these practices to begin with, is to understand and share the relationship of us to this idea of the universe. So I think Qigong is excellent. Really, I think the big takeaway is we should be moving like Dr. Kiltz and practicing mindfulness. It's pretty simple.
That's why every day I read things like Christ-based teachings or meditations by Marcus Aurelius, or the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, because these are human writings, or the Bhagavad Gita, or the Tao Te Ching, or these are human writings that we're, and by writing, even just sitting down and writing, I love you, thank you, please forgive me. How easy, how beautiful can that be? And it was interesting about I watched the movie, the series about James Garfield and struck death by lightning, and the one thing, he was a preacher, he was a statesman, he was an amazing actual guy, but he was remarkably kind and forgiving. Does kindness and forgiveness help the electromagnetic flow of our body?
Wow.
Absolutely.
Good question.
I see that a lot with cancer patients. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the resonance of our frequency of our body, right? And our normal state is to be in a calm, at peace, so to speak, right? At peace. When we are chaotic, that's only supposed to be a temporary response as a survival mechanism, not a way of being. Yeah.
Tom Sid on Instagram, how does frequency fit into this discussion? Maybe that's part of the frequency, maybe is part of our anger, sadness, depression, and how can we change those things?
Well, I think, like you mentioned, meditation or movement. I mean, you think about how you feel and reflect on how you feel, even when you do something as simple as take a walk, right? If your thoughts are busy, they're moving, right? And they are asking you to go move. And when you go move, they are allowed to essentially work themselves out, right? And then you're back in that harmonious state. So I think frequency, ultimately, of course, we're talking about magnetism, electricity, frequency. It really is all sort of the same stuff in a way. I think the recognition of where we fit into that mix and understanding that what we equate to as being at rest, parasympathetic mode, is a specific, well, probably multiple frequencies playing their part in our body. And that gives us our homeostatic framework, right? All of the different cells vibrate at different frequencies. This goes back to George Lakhovsky's work. For anybody that is unfamiliar, go look him up. He was amazing physicist, French physicist. And he talks a lot about the vibratory nature of cells and how everything, right? It's just like Wilhelm Reich or anything else we've talked about this morning. It's all moving. It's all in motion. And things get out of whack when they're moving in the incorrect format.
What do you think of the electromolecular energy of electricity power lines and or of the cell towers that are emitting all this energy? How's that affect our magnetism?
Oh, it affects it quite a lot. In fact, when we've done biomagnetism conferences and we're teaching, doctors and acupuncturists and everybody, we always do this interesting demo where we actually show an immediate effect, going back to the all or nothing effect, where we will take a person, we try to knock them off balance. And unfortunately, I can't really do that on camera today. You might have seen this, Dr. Kiltz, but you can actually take a strong enough magnet. And again, because there's an all or nothing effect, it immediately begins to move the hydrogen. We try that same process, try to knock them over, and it acts as a stabilizing force. We then take somebody's cell phone, have them hold it up to their chest, and then we do the same test again, and you can immediately knock them off balance. So it shows you that they're 100% affecting our body. And we can go back to the work of Arthur Furstenberg, the invisible rainbow. And he essentially documents, anytime we as humans have implemented radio or electrical power or what have you, that we almost see a wide scale illness occur in humans. And it's our inability to adapt to this new frequency of things, right? And then as we adapt to it, we tend to see chronic inflammation when we're not doing the other proper things like eating carnivore, right? Or being too stressed or heavy metals, all the things, right?
With that question,
I think
Alia.
but I think Austin needs to talk at Hack Your Health next year.
I would be thrilled.
I don't control that, but I will introduce you to Robin.
Well, I'll send you an email. we can get the ball in motion.
So, yeah, go ahead with that question, Alia.
What's y'all thoughts on veganism and how diet is important to our energy?
Well, again, speaking as a former vegan, it almost destroyed my health. And I could even say, having observed cancer patients, people with IBS that are all also doing vegan or vegetarian diets. As we've talked about this morning with motion, this is a really good allegory here. When you're eating the plants and they contain toxins, and they also contain things like fiber, which our physiology is just not really set up well to do. Because we can eat it today and then tomorrow move on doesn't mean that we should be doing it every day. And so when you eat those plants, they slow down the motion, right? The stomach acid is having to try and break down this really dense matter, and it creates inflammatory process along with the compounds and the toxic compounds that are found in those plants. So ultimately, while you may not fall ill today eating a vegan diet, it may not be 6 months, although there are cases where people have that happen. But for an average person, that probably won't occur. It will occur. Eventually it will occur, right? And so we're talking about, again, the long game, where if we look at our physiology, and really any vegan argument in terms of whether we're carnivore or vegan can all be dispelled simply by looking at the stomach acid and analyzing what it's doing. And if we look at only that piece of it, forget about the fact that our appendix is, this big, So that cecum is not conducive to processing plants. But let's just take the stomach acid, 1 point higher than a vulture. Our stomach acid is stronger than lions and tigers, right? Which really, in that message, tells you a lot. Not only does it tell you our place in the chain of command, but it also tells you what we're capable of doing. Things like raw meat, right? Which, again, for modern society is a little bit gross because we don't normally do it. But cultures around the world have recipes for raw meat, right? And in some places that's considered a delicacy. So I think really it just boils down to, again, understanding the physiology of our human body and just understanding that meat is the way. When I made the switch from veganism to meat, I immediately saw health improvement, and we didn't even have time to get into all that today. Right?
You gotta come back.
That's right. There you go, Dr. Kiltz. Yeah. Meat 3 times a day.
Well, what about
I could
alcohol?
argue maybe 2 or 1, but
What about alcohol and its effects on the hydrogen potassium pump, sodium potassium pump, and the effects of hydrogen and how that affects our magnetic flow?
well, that's a really complex conversation for us only having 4 minutes, but you can essentially say that it gets in there and it mucks it up, right? Doesn't make things work correctly.
It affects the nanomotors, which keep
Yep.
the sodium potassium pumps
moving in and out properly.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And fermentation in the gut from fiber is also a damaging and deadly thing for all of us.
Correct. Right. Which could also set up, conditions for cancer, right? Metabolic issues.
And so what's the best way for people to sort of dive deeper into these ideas that you're sharing?
Where can
goodness.
they find you?
And what, Dr. Nelson?
Where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Solterra_biomag. You can probably just search Austin Walters. If you're in the South Jersey area, you can look up Solterra Biomagnetism. That's my company. That's my website is solterrabiomag.com. It's SOL as in soul, like the sun, TERRA as in the earth, and then biomag, BIOMAG.com. If you go there, you'll be able to email me, ask me a question, set up a session if you'd like. I'd be happy to talk with you. And I would love to do this again with all of you. It's been very quick and interesting today. So
And we don't even know why you're carnivore. No.
I know.
Why are you carnivore?
The long and short of it is that I spent years and years and years being overweight, eating too much processed food, being a heavy smoker, being a not quite heavy drinker, but a frequent drinker. I suffered my own health issues. Last year, I actually had a heart attack, had quadruple bypass surgery in December. So we're almost at the year mark.
Wow.
And that is from the byproduct of all of those choices. And here we are, right? But that allows me to impact clients and come from a perspective of I've been there, right? And so I think carnivore has been a big piece of that healing. I think carnivore helped me lose a bunch of the weight. I now, of course, do fasting to get rid of visceral fat issues that probably also contributed to the heart. So that's the long and short of it.
How does fat adversely affect us?
Well, it depends on the fat, because if you have too much of it, right, too much visceral fat holding our organs together, but if we have an excess of it and it infiltrates the artery, it may be damaging.
But is it possible that the fat has nothing to do with it, but it's been the scapegoat, where in fact it's the plant, sugars, antigens, chemicals, and alcohol, which is really the deadly problem? Because if you have to migrate thousands of miles or gestate or hibernate and you're not fat, you're fucked.
That's very true. You will die.
So again, obesity causes no disease. It's what you consume that got you there.
Right.
It's like if you're drunk, being drunk isn't a problem if you're just laying in bed doing nothing. But
Right.
what got you drunk is the real problem.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And so really fat and obesity and even in visceral fat, what does your body make that's harmful for you? Nothing.
Right.
It's what you put in the mind and the mouth that matters most.
Yeah.
And simply, again, if you cook your plants well, eat less frequently, and add fat. So fat, faith, and fasting seem to be the best place to go in your day-to-day life. And there's only one day of life.
Right.
Today.
It's right now. It's right now.
It's just right now.
Yep.
Eckhart Tolle, right?
That's right.
What's your favorite cut of meat?
Oh, if I had my pick, it'd be ribeye.
Yeah.
All day long.
Picanha.
Oh,
Tanya, I'm all there. I'm there.
oh yeah.
Am
Well,
that
I would love to
weird
have
one?
all of you down if you ever get curious and you want to.
Where are you?
I'm in South Jersey, so I'm not too far from you, Dr. Kiltz, but
Yeah.
you know,
We're all close. I mean,
right? Relatively
I could
speaking,
be South Jersey in 3 hours.
I know.
from
Well, we didn't
Florida.
even get to remote biomagnetism. And
Well,
the
that's why prayer heals.
right.
Our thoughts are electromolecular energy that
Correct.
vibrates to the universe.
Yep.
And that's where meditation and prayer come in.
Yep.
What we can do to share around the globe electromagnetic energies.
Absolutely.
I love it.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, Austin.
It's been a ride.
The winner of the giveaway needs to email Alia at
DJ Magic
drkiltz.com.
Man, Matt Leo, please email me. You know how to do that. I think he's won twice this week.
All right, KMT, thank you for being here. And I'm going to sign off there. Thank you to Instagram, signing off there. And
I'm goodbye, everybody.
all right,
I'm signing off here.
guys.